Champions of Psychology is meant as education and entertainment. It is not a substitute for medical advice or professional counseling. Discussion of mental health topics will be primarily rooted in research and the personal experiences and self-disclosures of the hosts. While we can provide generalized education and possible mental health resources, we cannot offer any recommendations, advice, or opinions for any specific persons, cases, or situations. We provide these resources and links at our sole discretion, but have not necessarily vetted or reviewed any resource. We assume no liability for the use of the information or resources on these sites, and we encourage you to use your own best judgment.
Hello, and welcome to Champion Psychology, a show with the goal of openly talking about mental health and gaming, presented by Codename Entertainment and TakeThis.org. Every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time here on twitch.tv/CNE Games, Mitra Jordan and Raffael Boccamazzo, aka Dr. B, talk about mental health and how gaming affects us. If you're this live in the chat, you kind of already left a question for us, because this episode's all about answering your past questions that we didn't have a chance to get to. And when I say all, I mean as many as we can get into in, 50 minutes. Yeah, thank you for doing that part. So you're already ahead of the curve. Also, it's Wacky Hat Day because we felt like it, and it's our show, and we'll do what we want. And now I'm going to pass it over to the Music Man and my favorite gay top hat. Who are you all for the fine folks who may not know? Oh, I'm so stupid. Hang on. I'm so stupid. It really does help if you know how to set up the show that you've been doing for so long.
Yeah.
Now
I would like to point out that, was that a hex you said on me? Was that a hex?
It was a hex.
It was a hex, wasn't it? Yeah, I thought so.
Little bit.
Anyway, Gov, what I was saying was, I'm Mitra Jordan. When was I muted? The entire time?
The entire
time. Yeah, because I am not.
I have to
smart.
redo. Okay. Registered clinical counselor, working in Victoria, BC, with people for things, and I also like games. There we go. That's covered.
Well, and my name is Dr. B for long Italian name reasons, and I'm here to tell you about how you got trouble, my friends. Right here, I say
God.
trouble right here.
No.
We'll
be here the whole episode.
I can do that whole thing in 3.5 minutes.
I know you can. I can't tell you how many times I have watched you do it.
I learned it once, and everyone is going to suffer for it.
Yeah. No.
But I'm a clinical psychologist in Washington State. I am the clinical director of the oldest mental health nonprofit in game industry, TakeThis.org. Make sure to go follow us. I'm also an expert on the applied use of games like TTRPGs and whatnot in clinical and learning settings. And we have questions.
We do.
We have questions. We also have answers.
I don't know about that one.
That so rarely happens.
That's a big promise right there. Okay, so let's see. Let's just, get into some questions as soon as I find the right tab that they are on. Hey, let's go all the way back to May 9th for how to be a good listener. If you don't know what episode we're talking about, they're available on our YouTube channel, so you can go check those out there. But we're gonna go with Caleb Marin's question. How do you talk to someone who doesn't listen, and you really want to talk to them about things?
One
Okay,
of us was going to take.
Sorry, what?
I guess it's me. Well, first of all, set expectations.
Okay, Mitra, do you want to kick this one off?
I can kick this one off, and then I'm sure you can join in with something.
Probably.
Or the other. Yes, you're very smart there. Anyway, if you want to talk to someone about something that they aren't that receptive to, but you feel that this is material you kind of have to engage them on or talk with them. There are ways in which to set up expectations for difficult conversations. So if you know that you need to have a difficult conversation, you need to choose your time, and you need to include them, get their consent for that time. So you can, for instance, say, listen, there's something I want to address. Use I statements. It needs to be about you. And I feel a little nervous about having this conversation. I'm wondering if we can find a time where both of us, where you're in a place to listen and I can share what I need to. So you can kind of, don't launch into it right then. Don't put them on the spot if you know it's a tough conversation. Find a time and place where you are both prepared to have that conversation. And if it feels too much like you're kind of warning them and now they're going to run for the hills, what you can do is also see if there's a time where it might come up naturally. If it's something that could embarrass or hurt them, make sure you're doing it one-on-one so that there aren't other people who are going to witness this. If it seems like something they would need support with, see if they're open to seeing a therapist, or if there's if there's someone else whom you feel could be neutral enough. But it's usually best if it's just you and them. So, Dr. B, thoughts?
I'm gonna be the pessimist on this.
Sure.
And I'm just gonna say, you can't. This is something that as therapists we're taught a lot in our training throughout the course of grad school is you can't make people do anything they don't want to do.
Yeah.
I had to go to grad school to learn that. It definitely wasn't my parents telling me that when I was a kid. I had to get letters to know that after my name. But no, it's if people aren't, you can't make people do what they don't want to do. And
absolutely,
ultimately this is something I work on with a lot of my clients. And when we work on it with, together in therapy, the question I often ask them is, what is it that you're trying to get out of this? And what are your limits? And if you don't know what your limits are, that is something absolutely worth discussing with a mental health professional. But yeah, that's something that's a common thing we work on with folks in therapy.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think we can change a person's perspective. We can offer them ours if they're receptive to hear it, but then it's good to kind of know maybe you've tried if that's important to you, but that doesn't mean you'll succeed, and you kind of need to be okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and additionally, if it sounds like we're being evasive for a question like this, like we are with a lot of questions, it depends. And it's so context specific, and this is part of why I may not listen to somebody is different than why they might not listen to me. The tricky part about mental health is that what we're trying to guess at is internal experiences based on external clues. And those internal experiences vary so wildly. And this is also part of the reason that we don't want to give direct clinical advice to people, because we don't know the context of everything, aside from the ethical and legal reasons. We don't know the context of your life, and it would just be absolutely arrogant of us to say, well, here's how you fix that.
It's fair. It's fair. Okay. I think we're gonna go down to the radical acceptance. This is on June 6th.
Radical.
Whoa. Reaver01 says, question, does embracing radical acceptance in its totality helpful in overcoming the internalized fear of potentially losing what one sees as an important aspect of self during change? We put in examples of, will I still be me? What am I afraid to lose?
Well, that's often when I hear this similar questions in therapeutic contexts, that's very often what we end up discussing, because for a lot of folks, and this is this is not isolated to radical acceptance. This is around often around the context of change as a whole. Is a really common worry people have is, will I lose the parts of me that I value as I change? Because that's unknown. And that's a really powerful worry.
Yeah, absolutely. And for example, if you're someone who is really gregarious and outgoing, and maybe you want to say, stop going to the pub with that glass of wine or whatever, you might wonder, where am I going to get to be gregarious and outgoing? Mm-hmm. And was it the wine that was helping me be gregarious and outgoing? And who am I if I'm not engaging socially in that way? We sometimes get this question around medication, as in, will it intrinsically change something significant about me?
Yeah.
You know, and so anytime people are facing a change experience, absolutely, it's like, how about the parts of me that I like, mm-hmm. right? Or how about the parts of me that I use to cope with certain things,
right?
You know, if that procrastination that I used to get with ADHD, particularly before medication, you know, I'd get that sort of anxiety, and you know, would propel me to put the bum in the seat and get the work finished. Who am I without that anxiety? How am I going to get the work finished? You know, so.
Well, there's this for so many people, Mitra, and I know that nobody here has experienced this. I know that nobody here has ever experienced hesitation over change because of the fear of unfamiliarity.
I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah.
I know you don't.
Never heard it.
I definitely haven't hetated to change something because of the fear of the uncertainty and unfamiliarity, and better the devil I know. It's a really common human experience. And again, it's something I talk about with clients a lot. And one of my canned lines is that we don't change unless the cost of staying the same outweighs the cost of changing, because change does cost something.
Absolutely.
Yep. Okay. How does going to another question sound?
I don't know. Are we gonna lose what we just said?
God dang it.
I'm feeling impish.
He is. Yeah.
All the time.
All the
clearly.
time.
Gonna have to rein him in.
You know what it'll take? 76 trombones.
Oh God!
Oh God! Dang it! Okay,
we're going.
June 20th. Screen time, as an outdated term. Now, this was an episode that Mitra wasn't here for. We had this was Dr. Court. Yeah. So you can hop in on this episode. This is from Joker Lorian. I'm gonna go
Joker Lorian.
Joker Lorian. That was a word that just went all jumbled in my eyes.
Together.
They say, question, do you have any tips on breaking away from a screen for physical breaks? Reminder apps / devices don't seem to have the ability to break the loop. They put that in quotations. Between work, gaming, study, I easily find myself behind a keyboard for 10 hours a day, and even took up yoga to combat the muscle spasms from hunching over a keyboard for so long. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry. I'm taking the hat. It's getting too itchy on my head. I'm really sorry. Here, tell you what, I will put on...
That witchy hat is itchy head?
It is. I will put on Yoda
witchy
baseball
itchy.
hat.
Yeah.
I don't usually wear baseball hats. But,
wonderful hat it is.
So good. I understand this
His crowning glory, one might say. I try not to encourage him. I know. Really
Mitra,
do, Trevor.
Mitra, do or do not. There is no try.
Damn.
I do totally understand this question. I mean, heck, this was actually, and I have it here. I can do show and tell. This is actually why I bought a Steam Deck. Was because I got all of these PC games on my pretty new PC that I wanted to really play. But I also am here all day. And even when Diablo came out, for the first few days, I was playing it on PC still. And it would literally be like, okay, I'm leaving work. Bye, everybody. And then immediately load up Battle.net, and I would keep sitting here. And I actually bought it a second time on my PlayStation just so I can play it in another room that isn't here. And I understand it's still the same. It's still a screen and everything like that, which this person's talking about getting fully away from them. Yeah, do you all have something in place that helps you with screen time?
Oh yeah.
I certainly do. Yeah.
Mm.
You want to start this one?
No, you're looking way too excited. I'm gonna let you go first.
No, and this I think I'm speaking for what I understand of all of us, and this some of the conversations we have behind the scenes. This is something that, given all of us are ADHD or autistic, or in my case, both. Self-regulation is something that we all struggle with. See any number of puns this episode, but so we all have different tips. What works for us doesn't work for other people, and so forth, which is part of the reason we talk about common strategies as opposed to, again, what will work for you. For me, it's other people.
Yeah.
This is probably going to shock no one when I say this, but I love an audience. I really do, and I mean that. There's something different for me when there's someone else involved.
Yeah.
And this is part of the reason that for me, body doubling is so powerful. And if you don't know what body doubling is, that's where you find somebody who isn't going to distract you and you're not going to distract them, and you work together on something. Group projects are often easier for me than solo projects. And when it comes to me taking breaks, having someone tap me on the shoulder, metaphorically or physically, and say, hey, let's go do the thing, is so much more powerful than I'll get to that in 5 minutes. Oh, wait, I have a reminder. Oh, I'll get to that in 5 minutes because I'm in a flow right now. Someone else reminding me that taking breaks helps me maintain that flow and keeps my creative juices going stronger. I need that. I need those reminders. And so other people is how I do it.
A lot of my friends have been a big fan of Pomodoro sprints for writing.
Yes. Yeah.
And that one is, I think it's you work for, what was it, 50 minutes and then have like a...
You 50?
No, I can't remember what it was. Like, again...
20!
20, okay, yeah. You work for 20 minutes and have a 5-minute break. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see, this is the funny thing. I tried it and instantly failed at it because I literally said out loud the things you were just saying, where I was just like, oh, well, I'm in a good flow right now, I'll stop in like in just a minute, and then I never reset the clock, and then I didn't end up taking a break, and then I did end up taking a break, and it was for way too long.
Yeah. I cannot do something like that. 20 minutes is way too short a time. It doesn't work for me. When I'm working, like when I'm during my workday, I often have hour meetings with, my clients or with other people, even you guys. Once a week, we have an hour meeting. That 60-minute sit, focus, then get up and go do something is about right for me. And I try between sessions or between other kinds of meetings, I'll get up, I'll step outside for a few minutes. Maybe I'll get a cup of tea. I'll kind of take care and touch in with my body in terms of how it's doing. Do I need to, when I come back, adjust my chair, that kind of thing. Where I run into trouble and have really had to kind of change how I do it is at night, because at night my meds have worn off. I really enjoy when the house is quiet at the end of the day. And it is just so easy to forget time. So for that, I actually do have a bedtime warning that my phone or my watch, in my case, will sort of go, hey, it's time for wind down. I know that doesn't work for everyone because I'm looking at Trevor's face right now.
I can literally hear the little jingle of my phone going, din, 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 and I'm like, shut up, you.
Bedtime is in 1 hour. Plan on winding down now. Yeah, that's a loser's attitude.
Yeah, pretty much. Right? So, yeah, pretty much.
Sorry, I just remembered that I once yelled at my phone, shut up, you don't tell me what to do, you're not my real dad. Yeah. What does help
is getting up for a minute or two and walking around.
Mm.
It helps me because it helps me tune into how exhausted I'm getting. The other thing that helps, that I'm trying to remember to do, and this is a work in progress, is after I've done the things and before I sit down, I get into my PJs and I try to get more or less ready for bed, with perhaps the exception of brushing my teeth, because then less things stand in the way. Because that's the real problem I find for me, is like I'm doing a thing and it just seems like a lot more work to transition to something else.
Yeah.
Whether it's at night and it's bedtime, or whether it's getting myself lunch or something. If I haven't got it set up, I know what I'm eating, it'll take 2 seconds, or I just need to brush my teeth, and then I can actually continue reading my book in bed if I want. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But if I don't set it up so that it's easy, it's harder to transition, and that keeps me at the screen, in case that's useful for anyone else.
Well, and that's the other thing that I've one of the things that I've had to start building into my time overtly has been transition times. But coming back to the question itself, I mean, a good chunk of that episode, if you didn't watch that episode, make sure to go look at it. It's the June 20th episode with Dr. Cowart. A big part of what Dr. Cowart talks about, and what I often talk about, is that screen time is not this one size fits all construct. That's really old wisdom. And we talk about digital diet. What's the snack food? What's the appetizer? What's healthy for you? What's just eating ice cream? And for me, figuring out what keeps my attention too long and what I can switch out of is often really important. I cannot play single player RPGs unless I know I got spare time. And I mean a lot of spare time, because I will be in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure every time you and I have played Destiny, I've been like, oh, it's 9:30. And you're just like, oh my God, how did it get to be that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I have to, as I got older and I started being more aware of that stuff, I needed to control that. I needed to make sure that if I know I can't stop, I cannot start this because I got stuff to do.
Yep. Absolutely.
World of Warcraft. I played it one time in grad school. I know I've mentioned this before, but I'm mentioning it again. I played World of Warcraft one time in grad school. I looked up at the clock, realized it was 8 hours later, and went, nope, I can't do this. Glad y'all can. This is not for me.
Yeah, I played WoW for a number of years, and I had to, and it was great when I was playing with family or with a guild, because then we all kind of had some time limits. But when you're playing those things by yourself, that's when it's super hard in terms of just noticing time going by. And I don't do that anymore. I will also not read a particularly suspenseful novel at night. I am going to want to turn those pages and stay up till 4 a.m.
Oh, yeah.
So I think a piece of it is getting to know yourself.
Yeah.
Like, I'll read something that's a little slower paced and maybe even mildly boring at points. A bit of a slice of life novel is what I'm reading right now, and it's perfect for nighttime reading. Short stories, they're pretty good. So part of it is figuring out what is so engaging for you that you won't stop. And the other part that's useful is, if you are on a screen, maybe a different type of screen, like you're saying, Trevor, is a good idea. I like to use my Switch in different places other than at a desk, obviously. And that does actually help me stay more embodied. And as you were saying, Dr. B, yes, it's not, we use screens for so many different reasons right now at this point in history, and I think going forward, that the idea of not using one doesn't really work for most people's lives. So
yeah, I mean, it's at this point, the idea of not using screens is just not generally tenable.
Yeah.
No.
Now, I mean, of course, there are certain cultural things, the pockets where people do that. They're probably not watching this show.
Yeah.
The
thing that I will say, like, one of my friends, he does have ADHD. It is actually surprisingly good with at least recognizing when he's hitting that kind of like screen burnout isn't really a thing, but it's like he can.
I mean, not technically, it's not
but,
researched.
But when I say that, you know what I mean.
Saturation. Yeah, you get saturated.
Yeah. And so like there's been weeks where like we have a weekly D&D game, but a lot of people are long distance. We play on Discord, and he straight up said like, "Hey, I'm not gonna be there tonight because I've been looking at a screen too much today. I really do want to be there. I really do want to play with you all, but I need to take a break away from it." So kind of like recognize, like, it's an unfortunate thing, but it's kind of like, you know, the world that we live in, where it's like you're gonna be on the screen a bunch for work, and sometimes you need to recognize that, like, okay, this, after I'm done with work, I'm done with screens for the night, maybe some TV or something like that, but I'm going to make this conscious decision in the morning that it's like, okay, I'm not gonna do that. I'll read a book or something like that, just kind of leaving it a Mobius of like, I have options of things to do, but they don't involve screens. And I thought I've respected the hell out of him for that. I don't have the ability, but yeah.
Well, again, for me, it was learning myself well enough to know that, you know, it was just putting things together and realizing, oh, you know, I have enough evidence at this point, I'll be honest with myself, that if I say, hey, I'll just do this for 5 minutes, I am a lying liar face.
Yeah, it's super hard to do that for me as well. I will sometimes use a screen or watch a favorite video or content creator or something while I'm doing something more embodied. I might be making dinner, moving around, doing stuff.
Yeah,
and that's pretty nice in the sense that I am kind of engaging with the screen and with content, but I'm also staying in my body. And for me, one of the answers to managing this is staying in my body. Really starting to recognize, am I getting restless? Am I getting saturated? I do like have something else engaging my attention, as many of us with ADHD do. And so last night I took myself off for a walk while I was listening to my audiobook, and it was perfect. It was just perfect. And I'm hoping that becomes more of a habit. So, yeah.
Yeah. So it's knowing myself. And again, working with the strengths that I have and working with the things that I know motivate me. And for me, it's other people. You know what? I haven't talked about this in a while, but that's actually how I got licensed. How I passed my licensure exam, because I needed to study for 450 hours for the licensure exam. And that's the estimated number of hours you need to study for the licensure as a psychologist in the United States and Canada. That's 15 hours a week.
Yeah.
For the time frame I set up, which was like 3 or 4 months. I started streaming my study sessions. So what quickly became my community held me accountable to do the things I needed to do. #lurkinwork. I actually may revive that on behalf of Take This during the workday, so I have uninterrupted blocks.
Oh, I'm a big fan of that. I gotta get some writing done.
We've been talking about it.
That's absolutely how I got my master's thesis done. Yeah, and the fear of God in terms of like not doing it within a set time, because I watched what happened. There were some people who kind of joined our year who hadn't finished their thesis, and some of them, you know, had been sort of putzing around with it for a couple of years. You really do need a deadline. It can help so much. And then people who are also doing the same thing make a huge difference. I body doubled a lot. For assignments and.
I'll actually give a little shout out here to my friend's stream. Erin M. Evans, friend of CNE, former writer of CNE. She does a show on Mondays at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the channel Dungeon Scrawlers on Twitch, and they it's called Concentration Check, and they literally just do body doubling for writing. But you can
That's
come in
an amazing name.
Oh yeah. She told me that. I was like, that knocked it out of the park. Like they do that they do the Pomodoro sprint session. So like she'll write for 20 minutes and then take a 5-minute break, talk with the producer Yang, who isn't on screen but talks with her, and they interact with chat, and then they get back into writing. So that's
fantastic.
Very much recommend that for Mondays. So
shoot. Okay. I was thinking about if we did this again, we would start doing Pomodoros, but now I know I'm totally stealing from Aaron, so I'm gonna come up with something else.
I think they would love it if other channels did that, because it's a good thing to do.
Well, I'm gonna ask them before I do
that's
it.
fair. That's fair.
Because that's what we do.
That's what we do. Let's go over to June 27th, my birthday.
Your birthday?
When we did the autism AMA. And this is from what? Soupiope? I'm gonna go Soupiope. Question.
Soupiope? Oh.
Question. Hello. I have a friend online with diagnosed autism on the lighter spectrum, I believe. She often gets very obsessed with things sometimes. I'm just wondering some general advice or facts that I should keep in mind, I guess. I don't really know much about autism, by the way. Thanks.
Okay.
Do you get really like interested in things, Dr. B?
What?
See, this is dangerous. I
was paying attention to something else. I was thinking about streaming and other stuff when I'm not paying attention to what's happening on the stream right now.
I'm just drinking my tea here.
Enjoying it so much. That tea is delicious.
You know, it really is. It's a combination of Earl Grey. Never mind. You didn't ask. Please continue.
Well, okay. So this is actually a question I get asked frequently. Like, how can I best support somebody who's autistic? Well, there's no one way, because just as an example, a different example, in the United States and Canada, there are 9 diagnostic symptoms of major depressive disorder, of which you need to meet 5 out of 9 in order to be considered having major depressive disorder. Somebody once did the math on something as, quote, simple as major depressive disorder, and they told me it was like 54,000 different possible variations. Autism is even more complicated and multidimensional. And so how you support any one person who's autistic, it's really dependent on that person, what they need, how much they're willing to talk about it. So the way I often suggest to other people is, one, educate yourself as best you can going in by looking at autism originated resources, stuff that's written by us. Okay. The Autism Self-Advocacy Network's really great for a starting point. There's also a wonderful book called Bite Size Autism by Dr. Dana Waters, who's the head of the Awake Project, who talks about autism outside of the very narrow band of cis hetero white boys, and learn as best you can there. But if you're close enough with somebody and they don't mind talking about it, then having an open conversation with them can be helpful. But it means they have to be open to talking about it, because that's emotional labor on their part. You have to be close enough because it's vulnerable to talk about this stuff. And people have to be able to do it in a compassionate way. So autism, any sort of disability, it doesn't matter. I think those 3 factors need to be present.
Yeah. And I think how you ask is important. So, for instance, if you're saying something like, oh, hey, you shared that you were diagnosed with X. Is there something that I could be doing to be a support as a friend, or if you're related, as a family member, whatever it is, right? Is there something that I could do or do more of to help?
Yeah, I mean that it can often be as simple as that. And interesting, that's actually how we do that in the workplace. Because as an employer, as a boss, I can't legally ask people about medical diagnoses. Okay. Now, if they disclose it, well, then I have to honor that, and I have to hold it a certain way, but I can't inquire directly into medical diagnoses. And so if I notice that somebody who reports to me is struggling in a certain area, I might simply say, hey, I noticed you're struggling in this area. What can I do to support you? What do you need to succeed in this? And then we're just talking about work-related stuff. We're not talking about, medical stuff, because that's very private and personal stuff that they may not want to talk about, and I can't force them to. I shouldn't be able to force them to. That's their stuff.
Yeah. I had a question for you, and then it was gone.
Did you?
Yep.
That
Well, imagine that one person talking about autism, the other person with ADHD being like, I got something. I don't know what it was.
I had a thing.
Mm-hmm.
I had a question at one point. It was a good question.
Yeah.
Oh, so poems were written about this question, I think.
I mean, at the base level for it, we're saying like their friend is diagnosed with autism and they get obsessed with things. I mean, I'm speaking from the ADHD side of hyperfocus. Man, you talk to me about that that obsession, that hyperfocus, I'm on cloud 9. Let's talk about it all day.
Hey, Trevor.
Yo.
Thoughts on the Trinity Ghoul this season?
Oh, you are so mean to me. I want to talk about that so bad right now. That's a Destiny thing for people who don't know.
People don't know, some of us, and then those of us who don't know just kind of tune out. Pretty sure I'm doing a show. Say what? Yeah.
Mitra, your opinion on lavender in Earl Grey in addition to bergamot?
Really hate it. There, see, brief. Unusually so, perhaps.
Oh boy, but in any other things that we think would be good for this question of their friend gets obsessed with things, of like what they should do with stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, don't assume we know why.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think if you're close enough to someone and they're talking about a favorite in which you really can't participate or don't have any interest, I think it can be okay to listen for a bit and say, wow, it sounds like, this is really making you happy. But I don't really have anything to contribute, to this part of the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Can we switch gears to something that we both love or something like that? With people I'm really close to, I will say, all right, my eyes are glazing over now, because it's a known topic at that point, right?
Yeah.
And so I am totally okay saying, yeah, okay, I'm saturated. I'm kind of done with this. Is there something really urgent here you need to share? No? Okay, good. Can we just go?
Well, the guys from high school who I became very, very close to at the latter portion of high school and throughout my 20s, they had, and this was a very bro way of doing it, but it was meant with such love, and I felt so accepted every time they would do this. Anytime I would just start rambling off on just info dumping at people and not noticing that their eyes were glazing over, they would just, usually from across the room, they would see it and they're like, Professor, you're doing it again. Sorry.
Yeah.
And I know that it wasn't judgmental. It was just letting you know.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love a friend group like that. I have a friend like that with, for some reason, his thing, instruction manuals. He loves his instruction manual, and man, you get him talking about how something works, he will tell you like an instruction manual. And we occasionally have to go, buddy, instruction manual. And he goes, oh, okay.
Yeah. I think the thing is, if you're engaged with someone, you're there to share something with them.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
If at some point it's not working for you, and it's not, if it's like a mental health issue, they need a professional. You're their friend. You don't have that kind of helping contract. And if it's something that's a hobby or just a favorite topic and it's not working for you, it's helpful to say so.
Well,
or quietly leave the room.
I just realized something as you were talking there, Mitra, and it's an important thing that we haven't I don't think we've mentioned, that assuming somebody is struggling with something and they want help can be a dangerous assumption.
Totally.
It can be incredibly patronizing to assume somebody wants help with something.
100%.
Yeah.
It's infantilizing. And I know I've been on the receiving end of that, where I didn't ask for help it was so disempowering.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For the most part, just be a friend.
Yeah.
And only if they're saying, I really need some help with this, or I could do with speaking to someone, then you can say, yeah, therapy could be good, or I had therapy once, or something, but you do have to be careful because people aren't always ready.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily your place to push.
Yeah.
So
100%. 100%. That's the role of a friend. You're there to support your friend how they need support.
I now just have "thank you for being a friend" stuck in my head.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna hop over to our most recent episode, which was our ADHD AMA
last week.
And this is actually from Mars. We all know
Mars.
Hey, Mars.
Hey,
Mars says, question. My partner and I often talk about our brains and what makes them different so we can understand each other better. Are there any particularly good / healthy depictions of ADHD in media or other resources you could recommend for explaining ADHD life and struggles to folks who don't have it? I will say, since I know a lot of people use TikTok. I use Instagram Reels because I don't know, I'm a contrarian. I don't get it. But ever since finding a bunch of reels on ADHD, and there's a lot of them that are not great, but there's a few of them that are just like, hey, I'm just showing folks what it's like for a day in ADHD. Unfortunately, well, luckily Mars knows me, so he can just bug me later. I don't remember their handles off the top of my head, but if you just start looking at them and liking them, you'll see them. There's one couple in England. The wife is she's in a band. The band's really freaking cool. They did one reel recently that just, oh my God, it melted my brain just with frustration, because it was the perspective of each of them waking up and what that is like. And the dude woke up and was just like, oh, I'm awake. What is it, Sunday? Yeah, I think I'm gonna have a coffee. And gets out of bed and goes. She wakes up, cacophony of sound, just like, oh, you should have done this yesterday. You should have done this yesterday. You should be moving right now. We need to take a shower. We need to do this. And it was just, it was boom. And I'm like, I know that one is. Like, literally this morning, my alarm clock went off. I turned it off. I walked in the bathroom. I started the shower, and my brain was just like, so we're thinking about the book right now, right? We got to come up with an outline by today, right? And I'm like, I've been awake for less than 3 minutes. 3 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. That prioritizing is so hard. Yeah. I think that's the toughest is okay. So the question was, getting back on track, was good media examples. So I love Jess's channel. I think for people who are trying to figure out, how does ADHD work for me? What are some of the things that I struggle with? I think Jess lays out a lot of good things. So that's Jessica McGabe of How to ADHD, and she's great. So I think she's a really good place to start as well for people, because she's super vulnerable and honest about her own experience, and yet she's really well backed with research. I say this because, obviously Dr. B knows how well she's backed with research and who she is far better than I do. But I found her channel incredibly useful early on. So it's really difficult to find good examples in, say, sitcoms or media or shows or things like that, because I think often the whole point of such things is to kind of cartoonishly exaggerate people's experiences, and I don't find that that's super helpful for anyone. So because we're kind of struggling with something that is funny at times and also quite serious, and we need people who are actually helpful with that. So
I think about, actually, it's funny. I think about some of the examples, though the best example I can think of, I don't think they overtly flagged him as having ADHD.
Who?
and Jake Peralta, Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
I was literally going to bring up Jake Peralta.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and there's so many, because like Mitra said, if somebody is very frequently in media, especially sitcoms, is identified as having a diagnosis, that diagnosis, is often exaggerated, or it becomes a point of sympathy.
Yeah.
But with Jake Peralta on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, he's just him, and they largely accept who he is.
Yep.
And he actually gets the opportunity to be a hero in a lot of the episodes, without it becoming a detriment.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, it's a detriment at times. It is a detriment at times, but they still love and accept him for who he is.
It's also great when you realize Charles also has ADHD.
I'm gonna argue autistic for Charles.
No, I will argue autistic for Amy, but we'll be here all day.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The other one.
yeah.
Oh yeah. The other one that I realized recently watching shows was dang it, Eleanor on Good Place. I was rewatching again recently. I'm like, oh, you 1,000% have ADHD.
Huh.
Yeah.
Like, she's a terrible person when she was live, but like, she 100% had ADHD.
Hold up. Eleanor, not Jason?
Well, why do you think they became instant best friends?
Yes.
I'm just gonna,
Yeah.
But yeah. We could do a whole show just like, okay, which character has this?
And when she's studying, she has terrible trouble staying focused, and she goes off on all kinds of tangents.
Yup.
And I remember really empathizing with that. Like, oh God, yes,
I never caught that.
Yeah, well done. Very good.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll keep my eyes open now, because this is a question I hadn't really considered looking for in the media, but now I'm going to keep my eyes open.
Well, totally.
Thank you, Mars. Very helpful.
One episode of How to ADHD I really want to point out in the context of this question is explaining to people how different brains work differently. About a month ago, or maybe a couple, like 2 months ago, Jess released an episode which is just the two of us talking. It's specifically about our relationship. It's specifically about our relationship and the differences between her with just quote unquote ADHD and me with ADHD, and how we navigate our relationship. And it's talking about some of those differences. I actually got very vulnerable in that. Very different presentation than you see on this show. Much more subdued.
That's fair. That's fair.
And really, the point I think of finding media sources that kind of talk about ADHD, or even shows that seem to have characters who do, is kind of a representation. It's kind of engagement with people whose experience we can relate to. I think that's really a useful piece here. It's like there are lots of ways of being in the world, and also laughing, not unkindly, but being able to laugh at our own foibles is super helpful in terms of our resilience and getting through these experiences that aren't always easy.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good place to start wrapping things up, because no other better way to do it. I will say though, here at the top of the show, or the end of the show, not the top, this is going to be our finale for season 8. I know I said last week that we were going to do this episode and then one more after that. However, because of scheduling and things like that, we've decided that this is going to be the finale for this season, but we will be back at a undetermined point currently. So keep an eye on the usual channels and whatnot, and our Twitter accounts, and we'll let you know when season 9 gets rolling.
Number nine.
So be sure to keep an eye on the social channels for announcements about that. But friends, where can people find you on the interwebs if they'd like to do so?
So I'm at Mitra Jordan on Twitter and mitrajordan.com otherwise. And of course, as we know, Dr. Boccamazzo is everywhere. Dr. B.
Choose the full name.
I know. I think I'm in
I
trouble.
can
I know, are
pronounce
you?
the long Italian name reasons.
If she uses my
I have to
middle
do
name,
it.
I am so doomed.
Oh man,
That's like a banishing spell right there, or summoning,
just don't
depending on
use
how
my
things
middle
go.
name.
It's so much Italian or Latin in one thing that I'm like, okay, I'm there.
I like how you
It's
just
just-
instinctively did that.
Oh, shush. I don't gesticulate wildly. What are you talking about? My hands are in my pocket for a reason. Okay. Well, I'm around at the Dr. B. That's TheedocTor. B as in boy. But more importantly, follow Take This Org on all the socials. We got some good stuff in the pipeline. Parts 2 and 3 of our Burnout video series are currently at the editor, and the first couple minutes of part 2 are hilarious to me.
So definitely check those out. But
Yep.
yeah, that is well, let's see. You can follow me on Twitter at the Treavor. There's an A hiding in there. You can follow me on any of those socials, really, because I just make those accounts every time they pop up, because that's what I do, apparently. But yeah, that is gonna do it for this season of Champion Psychology. We'll let you know when the next one's coming around. But until then, take care of yourself.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Champions of Psychology is meant as education and entertainment. It is not a substitute for medical advice or professional counseling. Discussion of mental health topics will be primarily rooted in research and the personal experiences and self-disclosures of the hosts. While we can provide generalized education and possible mental health resources, we cannot offer any recommendations, advice, or opinions for any specific persons, cases, or situations. We provide these resources and links at our sole discretion, but have not necessarily vetted or reviewed any resource. We assume no liability for the use of the information or resources on these sites, and we encourage you to use your own best judgment.